Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on The Queen's Gambit by Elizabeth Fremantle. Queen's Gambit by Elizabeth Fremantle tells the story of Catherine Parr, the sixth and final wife of King Henry VIII, as she navigates a court of gossip and scandal, all while trying to avoid becoming her husband's next victim. I love the story of Catherine Parr. Catherine Parr was the sixth and final wife of King Henry VIII. Her story is just so incredible, and it's a shame that a lot of times she is so hugely overlooked within kind of the larger scale of things, because you have all of the other wives of Henry VIII that are just so larger than life. You have Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn, and yeah, people rightfully love those women. And yeah, it's kind of, when you get down to Catherine Parr, poor Catherine Parr sometimes is just kind of neglected, forgotten, ignored. So I do. Whenever there's a book of historical fiction that comes out about Catherine Parr, I just always look forward to it. I love her story, and kind of just the tragedy of it all at the end of the day. And you guys, I don't consider history a spoiler, so I am going to kind of be talking about a few things with this book, but once again, Catherine Parr was a real life historical woman. A lot of the things going on in this were real historical events. So yeah, if I kind of just talk about some random things that might sound spoilery, once again, I don't consider history a spoiler. You have been warned. I do feel the need to talk about the television series The Tudors really quickly. As much as I loved Natalie Dormer's portrayal of Anne Boleyn, I also really loved Jolie Richardson's portrayal of Catherine Parr. And it just, once again, going back to the whole thing of Catherine Parr always kind of just being neglected almost, Anne Boleyn had like 2 seasons on that television show. Natalie Dormer got to have 2 seasons. And yeah, poor Jolie Richardson as Catherine Parr, she only had what, 4 episodes? 4 or 5 episodes? Something like that. I can't quite remember how the seasons were divided up. But that's it. Catherine Parr was relegated to like 4 or 5 episodes, and that was it, unfortunately, which is just such a shame, because Catherine Parr's story, there is just so much to it, so much rich detail and rich gossip and scandal. It's so good. So what's wonderful about this book, and what Elizabeth Fremantle does with this story of Catherine Parr, she really gives Catherine a place to thrive and to shine. I really loved her portrayal of Catherine. Catherine in this book is very highly educated, and she's very opinionated, but while still being a woman of the era, I never really saw her as being like too overly modern. I think the elements of her that we would see as modern, I think what Elizabeth Fremantle does, she still keeps it all in the context of how a woman of this era should be behaving and acting, but yeah, still allowing Catherine to have opinions and to be vocal about certain things, and to be passionate about her religion and passionate about certain subjects. So yeah, I love the Catherine that's in this book. Just a very highly intelligent, incredible woman, I think. So just a quick rundown of Catherine Parr, what this book is tackling. Like I said, I don't consider history a spoiler. What's so fascinating about Catherine as well, not only is she Henry VIII's sixth and final wife, the thing is, before Henry VIII, she had a life. She had a life before this man, and a life briefly after the death of Henry VIII. So yeah, quick rundown here. Catherine, by the time she even married Henry VIII, Catherine was already a woman in her very early 30s. She had already gone through 2 husbands. So yeah, by the time she gets to Henry, she is a woman that is outside of the norm, because Henry typically kind of went after very, very young women who had not been married previously. So yeah, Catherine kind of was not checking off all those boxes there. Like I said, already being in her early 30s, already having been married a couple times. But I think that's part of her charm and appeal to Henry VIII. VIII as Elizabeth Fremantle kind of explores this book, because Henry VIII had already gone through all these other wives, and yet his previous wife to Catherine Parr was Catherine Howard, who was very young, very ignorant, very naive going into this situation with him, and yeah, she lost her head. So I think you kind of see a Henry VIII in this book who, he's tired of young, hot, pretty things. He wants an older, mature woman, and that's who Catherine Parr is. She is an older, mature woman. So with all that background information, you know, about Henry VIII's other wives lingering, because Anne Boleyn got decapitated, Catherine of Aragon was pushed to the side, and then yeah, Anne of Cleves was just kind of pushed to the side as well, and then yeah, Jane Seymour, his third wife, did give Henry VIII his male heir that he needed, but yeah, Jane Seymour tragically died after childbirth. So yeah, that's a big part of this book, as well as Catherine Parr knowing all this background information about all the wives, the previous wives, and what has kind of happened to all of them. Either they've been killed or pushed to the side, divorced, whatever. Yeah, Catherine Parr, she wants nothing to do with Henry VIII. She is terrified because she thinks, well, what if I'm next? What if he kills me? You know, what if he just pushes me to the side and doesn't do anything for me, you know? So there's definitely that very highly sympathetic side to Catherine right there from the get-go, because you as the reader are like, oh no, we don't want you with him. We know what is coming. And continuing with some information about Catherine as well, like I said, she was a very highly intelligent, educated woman for this time period. And you guys, while she was married to Henry VIII, I believe it was during while she was married, maybe it was after she was married to him, but she even published a book, you guys. Catherine Parr published a book when women pretty much were not able to publish anything, and it was a book about like her thoughts on religion, because she was a highly devout Protestant person of faith and whatnot. And yeah, her big aim in throughout this book is she's really trying to push, you know, nudge Henry VIII to lean back into his Protestant leanings, because yeah, Henry VIII was notorious for just being really all over the place when it came to, is he Catholic? Is he Protestant? What the hell is he? So yeah, it's kind of Catherine's job. She wants to try to nudge Henry VIII back towards the Protestant faith, if at all possible. And because Catherine was very headstrong with her thoughts and beliefs in regards to the Protestant faith and whatnot, at some point that does get her in trouble, because then all of the people who are like in the Privy Council or whatever, who are all Catholic and don't like her, they are using this to try to push her away and try to get Henry VIII another wife. We could have possibly had a seventh wife, yeah guys, dear God, if poor Catherine had got killed. So yeah, Catherine, once again, because she is such an intelligent woman, she's able to kind of outwit and outmaneuver some of these men who want to take her down, and she's able to keep her calm, keep cool and calm and collected, and don't freak out like some of the previous wives have kind of done when their time has come. I think this book is essentially a survivor's story, if you will, because once again, she's the sixth wife of Henry VIII, and she barely made it out of there alive, yeah guys. Just one wrong move on her part could have sent her to get decapitated as well, possibly. And fortunately for Catherine Parr, Henry VIII, she's only married to him for a few years or so, and then he does just die naturally. And yes, some of the most interesting parts of Catherine's life is kind of after Henry VIII, because she's still trying to find love again, you know. She's still in her 30s. By the time he dies, she is still a woman in her 30s, and even though back then that was considered old, you know, it's like she's still a young woman at that age. So the rest of the second half of the book is definitely exploring after Henry VIII and her relationship with Thomas Seymour, who is uncle to King Edward, Henry's heir, male heir. So yeah, the novel's exploring that really just traumatic, fraught relationship with Thomas Seymour. Definitely exploring the whole thing of, was it love? You know, how genuine was it? Was it just her being just kind of naive to it, just being a hopeless romantic after spending all that time with, you know, she had the other previous husbands who were older, and then Henry himself who was older, and yeah, here's a man who was right in her age range. So yeah, you would think that relationship with Thomas Seymour would be kind of ideal and perfect, but yeah, things kind of go down from there. And yeah, if you kind of know some of the things, especially in regards to the future Queen Elizabeth I, when she is just simply Princess Elizabeth comes to live with Catherine Parr for a short amount of time, and there's the historical did this happen question that this book is definitely exploring when it comes to Thomas Seymour and Princess Elizabeth. There was gossip and rumor and scandal at the time if there was a sexual romantic relationship between Thomas Seymour and Princess Elizabeth. And the thing is, there is really no firm historical yes or no. I think it's always just been speculation, mostly kind of, I think, from like scandal or gossip from like servants and whatnot. And a lot of times when books are exploring, or even television shows, because there's also a television show that's called Becoming Elizabeth that also explores this whole thing. Whenever authors and television shows tackle the whole thing with Thomas Seymour and Princess Elizabeth, it's always kind of done either one of two ways. Was Princess Elizabeth raped by Thomas Seymour, or like raped and manipulated, or was it just naive, ignorant consent on the part of Princess Elizabeth, you know? So this book is definitely, I think, taking more of the approach that it's just naive consent with Thomas Seymour, if you will. So poor Catherine Parr has that to deal with, that the princess under her charge has been seduced by her husband and whatnot. It's just tragic and terrible, scandalous, gossipy. I love it. And so Catherine Parr, this is where her story gets really tragic and upsetting, because she does have a child, a daughter, but then she dies a couple days after the birth of her daughter and whatnot. And Catherine Parr's story is just such a tragedy, you guys, because this is a woman who was a survivor. She had the two previous husbands before Henry VIII, and then while she was married to him, she nearly died. And yeah, then here she is dying in childbirth. And it's just so sad and unfortunate and tragic. And yeah, like I said, Catherine Parr, she published a book during her lifetime, and it just makes you wonder what else could she have accomplished in her lifetime and whatnot. I feel like all I've been talking about has mostly just been the history. I feel like I've not actually entirely talked about the book necessarily. I feel like I've given you like an overview of the entire book. As far as the writing of this book goes, I did really enjoy this book. I appreciated what Elizabeth Fremantle did with this book. I think you can clearly see that she did her research, and she was passionate about that research and including what she could in here. The writing, I was never bored. Seriously, the writing of this, I was never bored. I think it had a really nice pace and flow to it. Things kept moving when they needed to. They slowed down when they needed to. They moved quickly when they needed to, especially like moments of suspense and tension, you know, especially when Catherine Parr is in the midst of peril that she can be decapitated next, you know. So I do. This book, I'm seriously never bored. I liked it. I really liked her writing style. It didn't feel like ancient or anything, you know. It still had a kind of a nice modern appeal to a modern reader, I think, that you could easily get into it. And I think just the historical aspects of this, I think Elizabeth Fremantle does a really good job of kind of focusing on what she needs to focus on and presenting the history to you that's really digestible without getting confusing or overwhelmed. Because sometimes I hate historical fiction that just presents a lot of facts at you, and it's like, wait, I can't keep up. So I think a lot of the facts in this, she presents in a really digestible way, especially if you don't read a lot of historical fiction, or maybe you're not entirely familiar with Catherine Parr. I think this is a good little starting place for you. As far as some issues with this book, I think my biggest issue with this book kind of is with some of the characters. Not all of the characters. The characters that I'm specifically talking about are like the supporting cast of characters. I think Elizabeth Fremantle, she obviously does a fantastic job with the characterization of Catherine Parr. And then what I've also neglected to mention thus far in this review, your other main character in this book is a servant girl named Dot Fountain, or Dorothy Fountain, but she goes by Dot. Dot is a servant to Catherine Parr, and Catherine Parr, even though this girl is a servant, she's not even considered like a lady in waiting at all. She's considered more of a servant. Catherine Parr and Dot's relationship is the big core of this book in some ways. They have a very mother-daughter type of relationship. And yet Dot was a real historical figure. Elizabeth Fremantle does clarify that in her author notes at the end of this book, that Dot was a real historical figure who she took just some liberties with a little bit, but since not very much is known about her. So yeah, Dot is your other main character. I really liked the characterization of Dot in this book as well. Dot is not a very educated woman at all, but she wants to learn. During her time with Catherine Parr is just such a awe-inspiring figure to her, and she wants to kind of grow and develop and take wisdom from Catherine Parr. So yeah, we do see Dot over the course of this novel just grow and mature, become her own woman as well, thanks to the influence of Catherine Parr. And then you have another, I guess you could call him a main character to a degree. This is another historical figure. Once again, Elizabeth Fremantle clarifies who the fictional and the fictional and the non-fictional characters are. And this character is Dr. Robert Hewick, I think his name is pronounced. He is primarily Catherine Parr's personal physician, and in this book he is presented as like being a gay man in the court, which is kind of scandalous alone right there, and he has to kind of hide that and whatnot. But Catherine Parr knows his true sexuality and whatnot. I really liked Dr. Hewick as well. I would consider him a main character alongside Dot as well. He doesn't have as much kind of his own narrative to some degree, but he's still a really integral, important person within this narrative, and I really liked his function. So yeah, those three characters right there, Catherine Parr, Dot, and Dr. Hewick, I think Elizabeth Fremantle did a really fantastic job fleshing them out, developing their stories. But it's these secondary supporting characters that I think Elizabeth Fremantle does kind of a really terrible, shoddy job with, unfortunately. It's all of, how shall I put it? It's all of these significant others, if that makes sense. So yeah, as far as Catherine Parr goes, like her relationship with Henry VIII and Thomas Seymour. Henry VIII and Thomas Seymour, I feel like, are barely even in this book, especially Thomas Seymour. Dear God, considering that Catherine Parr is just super lovey-dovey and so obsessed with Thomas Seymour. It's like I never understood her infatuation with him as presented in this book. And I think Elizabeth Fremantle doesn't do a really good job of having enough just moments between Thomas Seymour and Catherine Parr to really make me care or even make me understand. And then yeah, Henry VIII himself, he is such a larger-than-life historical figure, and I feel like he's not even really in this book too terribly much. But yeah, the moments he does have with Catherine, I think, are really great. It's like, I just wish there was more of it. But yeah, definitely Thomas Seymour, dear God, that was just severely lacking, you guys. I think it's like, I needed more. I definitely needed to understand more of Catherine's obsession and love towards this man who in the end just abuses their relationship, And then as far as Dot is concerned, Dot has a romantic interest as well, and he is barely even in the book. It's like, why should I care about the relationship between these characters, And then the same with Dr. Hewick. Like I said, he's a gay man during this time. So yeah, he has a male romantic partner who is barely ever even in this book, but he's always constantly talked about. So that's kind of the thing with this book. A lot of the stuff with the significant others of our main characters, a lot of that is told to us rather than shown through the writing, and like the characters actually having interactions with one another, which kind of sucks. It's like all these characters, I want to see the characters interacting with one another. I want to see them interacting so I can understand the relationships, not things happening off screen and then the characters all talking about it. Like, what happened, I don't like stuff like that. So that's my biggest issue and complaint with this book, is definitely just the supporting cast of characters, the significant others, if you will, because it was pretty much those characters in particular that was severely lacking. And it's like, I would have loved more richer detail, because like I said, the main characters of Catherine Parr, Dot, and Dr. Hewitt, I think all that was really rich and fleshed out and layered and nuanced, and I enjoyed that stuff. Overall, I definitely recommend this book if you love all things Tudor's historical fiction, if you love the historical figure of Catherine Parr, or maybe you've not learned too terribly much about her because she's often neglected. You might want to check this book out and learn a lot more about her. And I do know there's some other historical fiction out there about Catherine Parr that I need to definitely get around to, because I know both Philippa Gregory and Alison Weir have written books about Catherine Parr. I do own those books, I just haven't got to them yet. So yeah, I definitely recommend this book. And I tell you what, if you watched the Starz television series Becoming Elizabeth, that's definitely a nice little companion television show to watch with this book. I think that'd be a great experience right there. I love that show. And then there's also a movie adaptation of this book coming out, starring, I believe, Alicia Vikander playing Catherine Parr, and of all people, Jude Law playing King Henry VIII, guys. I don't understand that. We shall see, though. So yeah, I definitely recommend this book if you love all things Tudors, Catherine Parr, just historical fiction in general about women taking charge during times when they don't have much power. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on Queen's Gambit by Elizabeth Fremantle. In the comments below, have you guys read this book? Do you plan on reading it? Just let me know your thoughts down below. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.